Hey, Chiefs Kingdom, welcome to the NFL's first ever virtual NFL draft and the first of 7. Yes, 7 live stream shows that we are going to have for you over the next few days, talking about the defending Super Bowl champions. That hasn't gotten old yet for me. I don't think it's gotten old yet for you to say that. This is going to be a whole lot of fun as the Chiefs try to run it back. Matt, that's been the motto all offseason. If they're going to do that, tonight's going to be a huge part of that. Not necessarily, as we'll get into, getting guys that necessarily have to contribute right away because this is a stacked roster, but guys that over the next 3 to 5 years can help build and be leaders and foundational pieces to that level of sustained success that we have not yet seen in Chiefs Kingdom. But I'm BJ Kissel. I'll be hosting these live shows. Matt McMullen will join us for all these pre-draft shows each day. Matt, 5 picks for the Chiefs over the next few days. How much are you looking forward to what we got going on?
BJ, I'm so excited. It's like Christmas morning every day for 3 days here over the draft. I love it. And the Chiefs have a luxury, really, of taking whoever they want, best player available. Most teams don't have that luxury. Most teams have a glaring need. They have to take a quarterback, have to take someone. The Chiefs don't have that. They just won the Super Bowl with a roster they've mainly kept intact. So excited to see what they can go after here in the draft, not just the first round, but the second, third, and fourth round. 3 picks in the top 100. Really excited to see what Brett Veach can do with this group.
Yeah, and we always got to be on our toes with Brett Veach, whether it's trading up, whether it's trading back. It seems like all options are on the table. And if you pay any attention to the rumor mill over the past week, which nobody should pay attention to any rumors coming out the week before the draft, but it's going to be a whole lot of fun regardless. And tonight is going to be a whole lot of fun with this show. We've got David Koechner, the actor, comedian, and pride of Tipton, Missouri, is going to join us here in a little bit, as well as Royals, one of the best Royals in franchise history. Alex Gordon is going to be joining us as well as Pro Football Hall of Famer Will Shields. We've got that Nebraska connection with Gordon and Shields going on tonight. And then Chiefs Chairman and CEO Clark Hunt is going to join me later in this show. And again, we're doing a pre-draft show each day, and we're also doing a post-draft show. And tonight, around pick number 27 is when we're going to jump back in here. Mecole Hardman, the Chiefs' soon-to-be second-year standout receiver, is going to join us on that and talk a little bit. And then Brett Veach is going to join us after the pick has been made or after a trade has been made when the first round is done. He's going to hop on with us before he talks to the rest of the media. So you will get exclusive access and all the most up-to-date information on this show. And the last piece of information, Matt, that we got to talk about just for everybody in the community, if you haven't seen it yet, the KC Hearts initiative that the Kansas City community has put out there. The Chiefs are a part of that. If you're sitting at home, if you're watching this on your smartphone or you're watching on your computer, go out and tailgate. Go out and find a way to have some fun. This is such a big event, and everybody really deserves this with everything that we're going through right now. The quarantine, the stay home, this NFL draft is a nice distraction for all of us. But go out, tailgate, put your stuff out on social media with the hashtag KC Hearts as a way for the community to just kind of be in this together. We've got a couple of submissions already. I saw one from KC Wolf has got it, and even Coach and Tammy Reed have got into the mix. It's cool to see them. We'll have live look-ins from Coach Reed's home office in his basement and Brett Veach's, again, throughout this entire show. Access you guys will not find anywhere else. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Matt, how about we talk a little draft now? Are you ready for this?
Let's do it. I can't. Right. I've been waiting all year for this.
I know. I'm so giddy. I'm going to try to not talk too fast. And then obviously everybody that's following along, keep the conversation going in the chat room. Let us know what questions you have. We'll throw some stuff out to you guys, but let us know how you're feeling. Let us know what you think about the draft as it's going on. Like I said, when we kick that show back up at pick number 27 or around there, we'll fire that conversation, go back up because there's going to be a lot that it will have transpired. But in talking about the draft, Matt, the one thing I want to start with, because it stood out from my conversation with Brett Veach last week in talking about the pockets in the draft and where he sees the depth in this group. And he mentioned 3 spots. He mentioned wide receiver, offensive line, and cornerback. So when looking at those positions and kind of where they fit, those are spots where you collect in numbers. You have a lot of different players that you fit in those places. And then when you look at a guy like Daniel, he has his top 100 list. And when you look at the wide receivers, Daniel Jeremiah has 18 receivers ranked in the top 100. He's got 17 offensive linemen ranked in the top 100. And he's got 7 cornerbacks ranked in the top 50. So to me, that's where it gets intriguing. The places that the Chiefs could add some guys, whether to play right away or to play next year, it's intriguing that those are the depth places in this draft.
Sure. And the draft is just as much about value as it is about getting the guy you want necessarily at each pick in each round. You want to make sure you're taking advantage of the value of each pick. And the fact that these important positions that you want to gather depth at, offensive line, wide receiver, you can get guys that maybe in other previous drafts would be first, second rounders. You can get them here in the third and fourth round. Huge, huge deal there for the Chiefs. They can target some of those areas later in the draft and find some good value there.
Yeah, there are a lot of storylines. How many offensive tackles go? How many receivers go? Where does Isaiah Simmons, a local kid, go? Where does he go? But Matt, right now we're going to be joined by a special guest. We'll get to the AFC West and all those picks later. Right now, we're going to bring on our guy, an actor, comedian, and like I said, the pride of Tipton, Missouri, David Koechner, coming to us, I believe from, are you in California?
Like the party.
All right, there we go. I got to ask, because being in California, it's got to be particularly interesting for you every year. Around this time of the year, the buzz about the Chargers begins, and they're going to get picked to win the AFC West. I felt like the new uniform unveil was just the catalyst to start that conversation of the Chargers are going to win the AFC West. We can't say they're going to win the Super Bowl because the Bucs have already cornered that market with all the moves that they've made lately, and everybody talking about the Bucs. Seems like it didn't take long for the Chiefs to become underdogs again.
There's no one talking about the Chargers at all. In this town, there's only talk about the Lakers. That's it. No one still knows that the Chargers are going to be playing here.
That could change depending upon what happens tonight. That could change if they get a certain quarterback from Alabama, and we can get into that later. But Koechner, I know you're a huge Chiefs fan. You follow everything. Do you get into draft season? Like, do you check in mock drafts? Like, how much are you up to date, and how much do you get into this time of the year?
I think this will answer your question. I have 5 kids.
Okay, there you go.
If I can get them out, I tell you this, about 15 minutes ago, I spent 20 minutes demanding they walk the dogs. So that's how my day's going.
So David, I have to ask.
Yes.
Well, I have to ask. Your kids are Chiefs fans, right? You raised them Chiefs fans.
Yes.
Okay.
My youngest took off just now to meet with a tutor in a very safe way. And otherwise I'd ever hear it last night. Shit! I should go get it. I guess I can go. Her favorite blanket is a Chiefs 60 blanket.
I love it.
I was gonna say, is your son in his Willie Lanier jersey?
Oh no, he no. That's my oldest boy, and he's got that at home.
Okay.
But here we go. My buddy Matt's gonna hold that up, will you? So this is my daughter's every day. Her couch. This is her couch blanket.
I love it.
That's awesome.
That's the couch blanket every night. My other son has his own Chiefs blanket on his bed. So yeah. They don't have a choice. They're Chiefed in immediately.
David, what's the strangest thing that you've done with your family to kind of entertain yourselves during this time? Because you got a lot of kids, you got a lot of bodies to keep entertained this time. At least you got that California weather.
That's true.
What have you guys been doing?
It's interesting. I'll tell you what my girls have been doing. My 2 oldest girls are 18 and 13. They are I don't know. There's 8 or 12. How many seasons of Vampire Diaries are there, guys? I know you have this information. They're like 6
Wrong
seasons
person
in.
Asked.
They're like 6 seasons in. And here's what I get when I walk in. Get out. You're too loud, Dad. Is that entertainment?
It's pretty good.
Or they'll just hand up a cup. Like, they'll raise their cup as if, hey, Butler, go get me. And I'm not talking about the kicker, Butler. That's the young man. I don't know. I might have to give you some Bears lore to understand who Kevin Butler is. Maybe you already know that.
Sadly, I don't.
Guys,
I'm embarrassed.
Where's Andy? I thought I was supposed to talk to Andy today. What's going on?
Yeah, he's a little bit. He's tailgating right now. We just saw the picture a little bit ago, but he's not going to be busy for a little while. We got to sit around for a little while. We're not making a pick until later, and I think it's supposed to be tentatively. And producer's going to kill me for saying this. Maybe around 10:30, but if there's any kind of tech issues, it's going to push that back. And based on the reports on how the testing went, there were some tech issues, so they're going to have to work through those. So it could end up being pretty late by the time the Chiefs make a pick tonight or make a trade down. That would naturally be what happened about 4 o'clock in the morning.
We won the whole thing, right?
We sure did.
Won the whole thing. So there's a couple phrases. Number one is winner take all, right?
True.
Yeah.
Why are we picking 32? Also, you played basketball, street basketball, or at the gym or at the park. There's a thing.
You can make it, take it.
The shot. Thank you. I thought we made it.
How about that? She's at the first overall pick.
Yeah.
I think they're just teasing Brett Veach to see if he could finally make a first-round pick and be like, we'll give you the 32nd one. It's barely a first-round pick. Like, just make it. Like, you don't have to trade out. Like, you don't have to do it. Just select a player right then. It could be 3 o'clock in the morning. We'll be live streaming it. We don't care.
I like to be controversial. Do you want to know I think we should go after first?
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Ooh. Yes.
Guys, we need a quarterback.
Yes. Corner the market. We were talking about this earlier. Just draft them all, and Coach Reed will figure it out.
Sit them down. But what are we going to get?
It's $1 million question.
Oh, we don't
know. No idea.
You have to watch the show later, David.
Oh, that's what I was asking. What do I get with the show? Does it come with a dinner package? That's what I meant.
Yeah. I'll just text you. I'll just text you who we're gonna take. Don't worry about it. We already know. We know everything else that's gonna happen, and who we're gonna take. Who do you want besides the quarterback? If you had to go to your second choice, what are you thinking?
We have to have a tackle, right?
You could take a tackle. We were talking about this before. You could literally make a case for almost every position on our roster, and you could make a case that makes sense to why you take that, whether it's an immediate contributor right away or if it's kind of like that red shirt year that some fans are against. It's kind of, Matt, we were talking about this. Like, there's like that faction of fans who are like, why draft a guy who can't play right away? We need help. We got help last year with McCole Hardman and Colin Saunders and Juan Thornhill. We had rookies who went into a Super Bowl team and played right away, whereas there's the group of fans that are like, hey, if it's the best player, even if he has to sit a year and then he plays the following year, if that's the best decision, then let's do that. And fans are like, why draft a guy who has to sit a year? I'm like, well, it worked out for our quarterback.
Yeah, he sure did.
Nearly.
He turned out pretty good, but I don't know. It's fascinating. There's so many different philosophical ways you can go with this that they might not even know. It kind of depends on how it all shakes out. That's what makes it so fun.
Well, I know they know everything. Look how well we did when we got all those key injuries all year.
Yeah.
On the line, too, everybody stepped right up and stepped in. Amazing.
Well, I mean, that's what BJ is talking about. You think about guys like Rashad Fenton, 6th-round draft pick. You're probably not expecting much from him in his rookie year. He steps in, getting significant snaps in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And plus, how about all those guys that stepped in and immediately got taken away in free agency?
Yeah.
Boy,
that's what you do.
Money. A lot of
that's what you do.
How many guys did we lose that did not start this season, but because of injuries, they came in and played the Super Bowl, but then we lost them. And these guys that were not starters that did start the Super Bowl, and they got
at least two. You got Terrell Suggs and you've got Stefan Wisniewski, were both guys who ended up being huge contributors. But you bring up great points, David, and I think that's something that we can continue to talk about throughout the rest of this week. We will be talking about it for about the next 4 hours as we wait for the Chiefs to make this pick as we finish up this show. We appreciate your time. Please, for your family, everybody stay safe, stay inside, and we'll talk soon, man.
Thank you. And so, again, I'm assuming this whole Chiefs thing is a dinner package. I'm sure that I'm getting a ding-dong very soon, probably some sweet barbecue. And I thank you already in advance for tonight's Chiefs dinner package. I'm going to really enjoy it.
You're welcome,
problem, David. We appreciate your time. All right, Matt, let's go back and talk a little bit more
last thing,
about
fellas, just
this.
One last thing.
Okay, what we got?
Kansas City at the plate, and whammy!
I can't believe I almost let you go. Like 5 years of doing interviews with you, we ended on that every single time until this. I'm glad you reminded me. I appreciate that.
You got a few things on your mind. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you. All right, Matt, let's talk about two of the most important or I guess popular positions that fans have been talking about, whether it's mock drafts or just, outside people saying this is what we think about the Chiefs roster. Because internally we don't know. We'll kind of figure that out over the next, few months as we see the roster kind of take shape. But the two spots are cornerback and linebacker. And I want to talk about cornerback first because that seems to be the popular position in mock drafts and just all offseason. And we heard this going back to training camp last year that we needed Jalen Ramsey because our cornerbacks weren't good enough to go win us a Super Bowl. And then all they did was go out and analytically, according to Pro Football Focus, were two of the better cornerbacks in the league. And I know that's going to set some people off, but their numbers, it's true. They were two. Charvarius Ward and Bashaud Breeland, according to some advanced analytics, were two of the better cornerbacks in the league, both against the run and when it comes to reception percentage when targeted. So when quarterbacks were throwing the ball their direction, the balls were caught fewer times with those guys than just about any other starting cornerbacks in the league outside of Denzel Ward with the Cleveland Browns. So cornerback is a popular position. We've got the two starters back in Breeland and Charvarius Ward. And like I said, they deserve more credit for what they did. But behind them, when you talk about the depth, all of the other guys combined currently on the roster combined for just 454 career snaps played at cornerback. And most of those are Antonio Hamilton, who we just signed, who's basically a special teams ace who's kind of filled in when needed. So there's not a lot of experience behind those two guys in Ward and Breeland. And Breeland is just signed the 1-year deal. So that's definitely a spot where it makes sense that you want to add depth, whether it's just because of an injury or because of what the next 2, 3, 4 years could look like.
I think it's important too, though, when looking at cornerbacks, even if we don't have a lot, it's really looking at defensive backs because the Chiefs love interchanging guys and making them versatile. You think about Tyrann Mathieu can line up at corner. So I think maybe when we're looking at the draft and looking at guys that we could take, it's maybe just not just corners, it's safeties too that maybe can do a little bit of everything. So really interested in seeing what kind of guys we can target because Steve Spagnuolo is going to ask him to do everything. It's not just, hey, you're playing on an island over here. You need to do everything a defensive back is asked to do. So I agree, though, definitely a spot where the Chiefs can add depth. You can never have enough corners.
All right, there's a lot of corners. Like I said, Daniel Jeremiah has got 7 cornerbacks ranked in his top 50. And we don't have time to go through all of them right now, but we picked out a couple. And the first one I want to talk about is LSU cornerback Christian Fulton, a guy who obviously coming from LSU, a national champion, played in some big-time college football games throughout his career. And he's known as an aggressive player. He's a guy that's going to fit in with Spag's system. He likes to play and stick his nose in there and run defense. He comes with some bad intentions when he's filling in run support. But when you talk about the passing game, he's a guy throughout his career has allowed less than 40% of passes thrown in his direction to be completed. That's exactly what you want. And when you're talking about a guy coming from the SEC who played in some of the biggest games, that's exactly what you want from a cornerback, particularly one when you're talking about picking at the end of the first round. That would be a great fit, I think.
Yeah, Fulton's a good one. I like him a lot. I also like Jeff Gladney, though, out of TCU, Big 12 country. He's a 4-year starter for the Horned Frogs and often trail the opponent's best receiver. Get this. In 42 career games, 43 career passes defensed, and one of only 2 FBS players to have 15 or more passes defensed in the last 2 years. So really productive guy. He's a smaller guy. He's not really big and huge, but his heart is huge, and he uses that on the field. You can see it. He's tenacious. And Denzel Mims, one of the best receivers in this draft, probably see him taken either tonight or tomorrow. He called him the best cornerback in the draft. So high praise there from Mims. I'd be really happy with Gladney.
Yeah, those are both good players that are going to make some team very, very happy. Let's move on to another position that's been talked about a lot, and that is linebacker. And when you look at what the Chiefs, their roster, how it's kind of shaped up over the offseason, that you lost Reggie Ragland that left for the Detroit Lions, Darren Lee still a free agent, and you've got Terrell Suggs. And all three of those guys contributed at different times throughout the season at different amounts. There were still about 400 snaps played during the regular season between Ragland and Darren Lee, so you've got to figure out how to kind of gobble up those snaps with different guys. And then looking into the future, you see guys like Damian Wilson, who had a team option that got picked up, but you've also got Ben Neiman, who's scheduled to become a restricted free agent next year. So if you want to take a guy, knowing that linebackers, because of sub packages, maybe he finds a role in here right away. And this first guy that I want to talk about is definitely one of those versatile players that would probably figure out a way to get on the field, and that's LSU's Patrick Queen. He probably won't be there at 32 based on mock drafts, but he's Daniel Jeremiah's number 15 overall player. He is the perfect new age NFL linebacker. He can run, he can cover, he's an athlete, and he played his biggest in the biggest games that they played. The college football playoff and the national championship, Patrick Queen was absolutely everywhere. He would be, and he is one of the most popular names for Chiefs fans. It'll be interesting to see if he can get past like 23, the Baltimore Ravens, the New England Patriots, who are also looking for linebackers. But if he can get by them, he's a big time player.
Absolutely. And my guy really fast, Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. I love him for multiple reasons, both on and off the field. On the field, triple-digit tackles the last 2 years, called the defensive signals for the Sooners the past 3 years. And then off the field, he's saved multiple lives administering CPR. And also his family adopted 3 special needs for him when he was young, and he's really taken them in as his own. And he sees them as his responsibility now as he grows up and enters the NFL. So guys like that, just really awesome locker room guys who are also super productive on the field kind of player. And he's really good too. So Kenneth Murray is my guy. If he's there at 32, I would love that pick.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys who are good, that have good stories, and Kenneth Murray is one of those guys. And being in Big 12 country, you've seen that guy run around and make plays from like the Rush Sam spot and some different spots that he's been in. Another one of those versatile players. And speaking of versatility and just the ability to be an unbelievable Hall of Fame player on the field, and then just to be an unbelievable dude off the field, we are lucky to be joined by Pro Football Hall of Famer and one of the greatest Chiefs ever, Will Shields. Will, we appreciate your time for joining us tonight. How much are you looking forward to the Chiefs in the draft tonight and over the next couple of days? Oh, well, I don't think we can hear you right now, Will. We got to get the audio there figured out. But we were joking earlier. We've got you coming on now. We've got Alex Gordon coming on here in a little bit. So we've got the Nebraska connection between a couple of our people. But while we're waiting for Okay, while we're waiting for Will and his audio, we're going to go back because, Matt, we talked about cornerback, we talked about linebacker, but the other position that I want to talk about, and one player in particular, is defensive tackle. Another one of those spots where the Chiefs would always have 4 or 5 guys on game day that would rotate. Starting numbers, who starts doesn't matter. Like, all the different guys are going to contribute, different guys are going to mix in. But the one guy whose name's been popping up, particularly a lot lately, who ended up on 2 of the final mock drafts, one from Daniel Jeremiah and one from Evan Silva, was a teammate of Jeff Gladney, the guy that you were talking about earlier, and Ross Blacklock, the defensive tackle, 6'3", 290 at TCU, an unbelievable athlete. This guy would be a whole lot of fun to see in the Chiefs system.
And he was a freshman All-American several years ago in his freshman year at TCU. Had some injuries, but last year he had 9.5 tackles for loss. He's just a really, really productive player when he's on the field. And also, his dad was a Harlem Globetrotter back in the day. Athleticism is in his blood.
He's one of my favorite guys to watch in this draft because when you see a big man who can move the way that his feet move, twitch is one of those like popular scouting terms, like, his motor and all that stuff, but it really showed up on what TCU liked to do in their scheme. They stunted and did slants and twists. I want to say like 80% of the time I read on that system. So when you have a defensive tackle that can move the way that he can in a system like that, really accentuates what he does so well. It really stood out. And like I said, it was one of the most fun guys I had watching just because of his ability to disrupt. He is a pass rushing specialist. He can get into the backfield. Yeah. And now we've got Will back.
Hey,
we're just going to ask just how much are you looking forward to the draft tonight?
It'll be interesting. I think it's something that's going to sort of change the way we look at things from this point forward. But I'm excited about it. I think it'll be pretty cool just to get a chance to see how each player that does get drafted at that point now, how they interact and how many friends and family do they have in their house quarantined with them to be able to be a part of it. So that'll be unique within itself.
Real quick, Matt, before you got a question, I want to throw a question to the chat room. I want them in like 3 words to describe that offensive line, Will, that you guys had. I know you talked about it 1,000 times. I probably asked you about it 500 times. But in 3 words, describe that Chiefs offensive line from the 2000s and what those guys were able to do. All right, Matt, sorry.
Yeah. How about tough, and more tough? Will, I have to ask, speaking of that offensive line, you weren't a first-round pick. I mean, you're a Pro Football Hall of Famer, but you weren't a first-rounder. You had to fight for what you ended up making of your career. What do you remember about your draft experience, and what advice would you give to guys that maybe aren't drafted in the first round that they can still have an amazing career like you did?
Well, I think even if you look at it, actually there was something posted today on Instagram from the Hall of Fame about how many guys are in the Hall. And, there's just as many that weren't first-round picks, pretty close. I mean, if you put us all together beyond that. But there is like 127 first-round picks. And then if you spread it out across the rest of the guys, you get close to that on both sides. So that lets you know that there are other pathways to get there. But it's also making the best of what you get. And when you get that advantage to be able to get an opportunity and be prepared for it, I think that's the most important part of it, to be prepared for it and be willing to work through what other people say is your weaknesses to make them your strength.
Sure. And well, one of the things that you've talked about throughout your career is coming from Nebraska back when you played. There were a lot of people that knew you could run block, but weren't sure what kind of pass blocker that you'd be. And nowadays, it seems like it's almost the opposite for evaluators, that all these spread systems and they see these offensive linemen at 2-point stances all the time, where the evaluations become trickier. And I know you still train guys at 68 Inside Sports and have different college offensive linemen come and see you. Just how difficult is it an evaluation and just the offensive lineman specifically for you, even when you're watching, because of the different systems and the way the game's kind of evolved at the collegiate level?
Well, the thing of it is, you use the right word, system football. Each guy has their own system. They recruit people to fit their certain systems to win for that point. And so it makes it difficult to sort of say, okay, we're going to go to a next level, and we're going to actually have you get down in the 3-point stance where, you're trying to train guys how to get in the 3-point stance again. It's like, oh yeah, I haven't been in 3-point stance since the 6th grade. So, it's teaching them that flexibility and being able to get down and do those different things. But also teaching them how to dance. I mean, you have to be able to dance these days to be in front of those guys that can wiggle and try to get around you and things of that nature. So that makes you sort of try to build out, okay, how well can you shift your body back and forth, and we call it disconnecting your hands from your feet. If you can disconnect your hands from your feet, then that makes you a better blocker. And that's one thing we try to see if you can do that early. And if not, we try to teach you that so that you can do it better once you get to the next level.
Well, I'm curious, do you pay attention to mock drafts? Do you still get as into this kind of thing as fans do, or do you just wait and see who the Chiefs get every year?
You sort of wait and see who they get and who they pick up. I mean, you look at it to see, okay, who's going to be the first 5 or 6 guys. And then from that point, okay, let's see what's going to happen from that point forward. Just because they get so many notoriety from the guys that are in that first round makes a big difference from, seeing what they're going to accomplish from that point forward. But I do always look at and see who the Chiefs picked up and try to see how they're going to fit into the system of what they're going to do. And right now it's going to be difficult since they have so many guys that are coming back from last year to this year. It's more or less now a future plan of, okay, what's a year look like down the road? What can we get that person that's going to fit in for a guy that might end up going out in free agency and things of that nature?
Well, I want to ask you because I ran into you in Indy at the hotel at the Combine, and I know you were doing the Legends thing where you kind of mentor the guys and kind of follow around a group of offensive linemen there. And it's funny because the guy that you mentioned that you had kind of talked a little bit and just didn't know him as a player but knew him as a person a little bit, has been getting a lot of buzz over the last couple of days, in LSU center Lloyd Cushenberry. I know you've been doing this for years and you talked to a lot of different guys, but what was that process like for you this year? And are there any stories or any of those players really jump out to you that you're excited to see just because you got to know them personally a little bit and where they go over the next couple of days?
Well, it's a lot of fun because we get a chance to finally get in front of them. And some of the guys, this is the second or third time I got a chance to sit down and meet with them. I actually did the East-West Shrine game this year for the last 2 years. And then I sort of travel with them from there and then I'm seeing them again at the Combine. So I get a chance to see them individually, but also got a chance to work with them that week since I got there early enough, like on Monday. So I got a chance to actually get down and see how do they move, how do they work, that kind of stuff. And then sort of go, hey, these are the things you're going to have to work on for the next couple of weeks. And then you see them in the Combine and you can sort of reiterate that across the board. But it's really cool to watch, this class of offensive linemen because the simple fact of it is there is a need getting quality guys that can come in and fill in. I mean, we did have quite a few guys that, hung up their cleats this year that they're looking for the next guy that's going to be able to replace them. And I had a good time of talking to them, which was good because each guy had a different question. But what was really unique was them trying to figure out who were you and what did you do to be able to be there to be a mentor. And so that's what made it all so fun.
And well, before we get you out of here, I have to ask, you've been a huge part of this Kansas City community for a long time, Man of the Year winner. Community work has always been really important to you. In the midst of this crisis, you made a big donation to Harvesters lately. I'm just curious why that was something you wanted to do and why this community is still so important to you.
Well, I mean, this is home. This is where you were drafted and brought in, and basically the community embraced you. So you have that opportunity you had to give back, and that's why we end up having the foundation, is to be able to help people across the board, and for us to be able to be a part of it and help out is really important. And I think, knowing our team and our structure of what we've done over the past, when we first got here, there were 17 guys doing stuff in the community. So we just sort of keep building on that year in and year out. We like that small market feel because that gives us a better end of being closer to the community and being a part of it. And that was really important to us.
For sure.
Will, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you for joining us and bringing that knowledge that you always bring. We appreciate your time. Hopefully you and your family continue to stay safe, and we'll catch up soon.
Well, thanks, man, and good luck tonight.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you. Matt, that is just another great example of how a simple pick in the third round way back when, the domino effect of what happened, not just on the field, but off the field, and how the community became so much better because Will Shields and his family came here. It just goes to show that the trickle-down effect of the decisions that are being made over the next 3 days really does have this everlasting effect, can really change things for an entire organization.
Yeah.
But Matt, right now, I want to switch it to the AFC West. Because as much as we want to talk about the Chiefs draft and what they're going to do at 32, do they trade up? Do they trade back? Do they select a player? And then what do they do over the next few days? The facts are that the AFC West, 4 of the first 19 picks tonight are from teams inside the AFC West, including 2 from the Oakland Raiders at 12 and 19, as we look at all the different picks for the teams in the AFC West right there. There's a lot of intrigue, and to me, it starts with the Chargers at 6.
Absolutely. Well, you wonder with the Chargers at 6, do they want that franchise quarterback? First time Phillip Rivers hasn't been there in forever, it seems like. Do they go after Tua? Do they go after Justin Herbert? Who do they like? And if you like one of those guys, do you feel like you have to jump over the Dolphins to make sure they don't take your guy? Because you can't mess this kind of thing up. You have to make sure you get your guy and that he's the one that's going to set your franchise up for 10, 15 years. Think about the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. You win a Super Bowl 3 years after you draft him. But if you screw this pick up, it could really set you back for a long time. So you have to be certain about that guy. If you don't like either, you go tackle or something. But really curious to see what the Chargers do if they pick one of those 2 and if they feel like they have to trade up to get him.
Yeah, every team, maybe it's just the position of being Super Bowl champions, but it feels like every team in your division, if they pick an offensive player, your mindset is they're just trying to keep up with Patrick Mahomes. And if they take a defensive player, it's like, well, they're trying to stop Patrick Mahomes. Like, no matter what it is, it's in context of going after the champs, which it's a cool position to be in right now. So let's take a closer look at the Los Angeles Chargers right now and kind of what their offseason has looked like. Obviously, a huge change at the quarterback position, and that 17 is not going to be under center, which is going to be very, very strange because that's a guy who was an Iron Man, didn't miss many football games throughout his career. And now it looks like Tyrod Taylor or maybe somebody else, we'll see how the next couple of days goes, may end up being under center for them. But they also lost Melvin Gordon, and Thomas Davis is another guy at that veteran linebacker spot, and then bringing in Brian Bulaga, making the trade for Trey Turner to try to solidify that offensive line, and then bringing Chris Harris over from the Broncos. And this is obviously a Chargers team that's lost 11 of their last 12 against the Chiefs. So whatever they're doing, they got to try to figure out how to try to best the Chiefs, something they haven't done recently.
Absolutely. Really curious to see what they can do. And what's interesting about them is, they need to make this transition to the next quarterback, or they stick with Tyrod. But their defensive ends, Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa, those guys have 1 year left in their contract, I believe. So you kind of wonder they're in a weird flux of talent. What are they going to do? How do they take advantage of having the guys they currently have? We'll have to see what they do here tonight to really kickstart that and get started.
Yeah, the 3 positions have been mocked to them the most: offensive tackle, and then obviously Tua Tagovailoa. That's something that we'll talk a little bit. I'm going to get that right. I'm going to get that right before the end of the day. But that's one of those guys that we'll get into more on Tua in a little bit because we've got a whole segment of the top quarterbacks. But let's move on to the next group, and that is the Denver Broncos, a team that's lost 9 straight to the Chiefs.
I see a trend here.
Yes. And the offseason that they've had, they lost Derek Wolfe to the Baltimore Ravens. And then Chris Harris obviously moved over to the Chargers, but stayed in the division. But then they lost Joe Flacco, but Drew Lock was already the guy, MIZ guy. So they made some big trades also. The Broncos were active in free agency. They brought in A.J. Bouye, traded I think a 4th-round pick to the Jaguars to get him over. And then Jarrell Casey was the big one. A big contract, little draft pick, 7th-round pick for a former Pro Bowl player. So that's a huge move for them. And then Graham Glasgow was one of the under the radar moves, one of the top interior offensive linemen available in free agency, signed with the Chargers. And then obviously Melvin Gordon going over to the Broncos. So a lot of changes there for the Broncos as well.
Yeah, and really the position they're in, they have to find out what they have in Drew Lock. So what do? You surround him with talent and make sure if he's going to fail, it's because he failed. It's not because he didn't have guys to throw the ball to or guys to block for him. The offense has some weapons. Think about Cortland Sutton, Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, Noah Fant, lots of good players on that offense. And like you said, the defense is pretty good too. But that offense for Drew Lock, surrounding him with guys is what I think is imperative. So I think a receiver makes a lot of sense for them here tonight. They've been mocked to a lot of receivers like Jerry Jeudy or Henry Ruggs. Another weapon for Drew Lock to see what they have in him probably is the key for them.
We talked about it during Watch Party Wednesdays that Cortland Sutton is going to be a problem. That guy is good. And that you said those young weapons kind of develop with the quarterback, and he finds some, whether it's Noah Fant, like you mentioned, the running game with Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. And they still have Royce Freeman, who at different times has been very good running back. So they're definitely taking a different approach. All the rumors, and I hate saying it, I hate being the person to repeat them because nothing is true right now. But the rumors are that they want to trade up. They don't think they're going to be able to get probably a Henry Ruggs, a guy that would fit very well with Cortland Sutton. And they're tired of seeing what we do with Tyreek. So maybe they want their own kind of Tyreek and a speedster and a guy like Henry Ruggs that just makes plays and makes big plays. Every time he gets his hands on the ball, he's a threat to score. So let's move on to the Oakland Raiders now. The Las Vegas Raiders. Producer
takes some getting used to.
It's gonna be so hard to do that. But this is a group that's lost 10 of their last 11 to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they did a lot more additions this offseason than subtractions. Although they did lose Benson Mayowa. I can't say that name. And then linebacker Tahir Whitehead. We got a lot of live shows going on. We appreciate you guys all for joining us. And then we've got Corey Littleton, the linebacker they added, Nelson Aguilar and Jason Witten. They've added some veteran guys. Obviously, Marcus Mariota is another one.
Sure. And you think about what might do here, have Mike Mayock there at GM and John Gruden. They're a team I could see trading back. But really with those 2 first-round picks, these are picks you acquired for Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper. So at the time when you traded them, it's we got these high first-round picks, it'll work out. You better make sure you hit on them, or all of a sudden those trades aren't good ones. So curious to see what the Raiders can do. Might go corner, could go wide receiver. We'll see. Or even linebacker makes sense for them, guys like Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen. But we'll see what the Raiders do.
And I wouldn't be completely shocked if they went out of their way, and I've seen it a couple of places, and took a quarterback. They bring in Marcus Mariota. They're not necessarily married to Derek Carr at this point. They want to generate some excitement. They know they've got to put up points with Patrick Mahomes, and maybe they take a quarterback and give him a year to kind of develop. They've got the ammo to do it right now. And if you don't have a long-term quarterback who's going to put up 35, 40 points a game going against Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be in a tough spot. So maybe they go receiver and help them out that way, but maybe they take a quarterback. You never know. Right now, we've got another special guest across the parking lot. If we were over at Arrowhead, we are joined by one of the best players in Royals franchise history, and Alex Gordon. Alex, we appreciate your time. Hopefully you and the family are staying safe, and you're keeping yourself sane with all the stuff going on, knowing you guys would want to be playing baseball right now.
Absolutely. What's helping out is the NFL draft tonight, so we're actually watching some live sports and not some reruns. So this is fun.
We all deserve
That's
this.
awesome.
We've all been watching so many different things over and over and over again that it's nice to get something real and something new.
Yeah. The good thing is they play the Royals games every night, and they only pick games that we win. So right now we're undefeated this year. So
there you go.
Nice.
Well, Alex, I got to ask, you've been a Chiefs fan a long time, grew up in Chiefs Kingdom. Do you pay attention to mock drafts? Do you get really into the draft every year, or do you kind of just wait and see who the Chiefs got?
I kind of just wait and see who the Chiefs got. They've done pretty good over the last couple of years with trades and getting Mahomes and everything like that. So I have all the faith in the world that they're gonna either make a good trade to get a good pick or make a good pick at 32. So excited to see what happens, and it's just fun to see all these college athletes where they get picked and how it goes about. So
I'm just curious. I know that the NFL draft and the Major League Baseball draft are different, and obviously the timing was a little bit different. But just what do you remember about your draft story as high as that you were selected? And I remember it vividly, having played against you when I was in college. We got to see it up close and personal at Nebraska. But what do you remember about your experience? Where were you on draft day, and what kind of memories do you have thinking back to that?
Well, it was really different than it is now. I think after I got drafted, they started televising it and doing a lot more with the draft. We were actually preparing for a super regional, and we were practicing at the time it was going on. We were preparing for Ryan Braun, John Jay, and the Miami Hurricanes. Wow. And I was on the field, and I had my older brother sit in the stands, which it was completely empty, because I knew I was going to go top 5 pretty much. And just kind of whistle at me and tell me which one I went. And so when I got to number 2, he whistled and said number 2, and I knew it was the Royals, and was pretty pumped. And the team kind of stopped practice and kind of got together and kind of gave me a little celebration talk and speech. So it was cool. A little different than what goes on now, though.
You know, the Chiefs really aren't in this position where they have to pick a guy that, you know, has the weight of the franchise on his shoulders. But for a lot of the guys that are drafted tonight, they're going to feel that pressure they have to come in and change everything. As a second overall pick, you kind of had that. People felt like you had to come in and change everything as a young kid. What advice would you give to players being drafted here tonight that they don't have to go in and change everything the first day?
Yeah. Sorry, my kids are running around right now.
No problem. It's real life.
It was different, and it was an adjustment period for me, especially coming into an organization like Kansas City that was, you know, losing 100 games every year, and you know, you start drafting these high picks, and you expect these guys to turn the franchise around right away, and it kind of gets on you a little bit. But I think with experience and having the right people around you, it kind of helps you. And, you know, it struggled with me early on, but the more experience I had, the more I leaned on the people that I surrounded myself with, the better it got. So I would say just have a good group around you and know that better times are ahead.
Alex, before we let you go, I got to ask, because I've joked about this with my kids, and that, you know, you wait 30 years being somebody who grew up in Kansas City and not ever, you know, experiencing a world championship, and you guys got it started in 2015, and then 5 years later they get a Super Bowl. Like, our kids are spoiled. Like, they don't know the struggle of waiting this long. But just how cool was it for you to kind of see the city come back alive again with the Super Bowl and the parade and the whole deal? And how did it kind of fire you back up to get ready for baseball season? Obviously, we're with where we are now, but just how did that whole thing kind of get you going again?
Well, just the experience in 2014 and 2015 was something that I can explain. It was unbelievable. They're showing the games actually right now on FSN. And just looking back, it's just a great memory. And being a part of the Chiefs this year, you know, every time I went to the stadium or to a game, you know, the way the Chiefs won, it was always they were coming back. They had never die attitude. And that's kind of how we won. And people were reminding me about that. You know, this team reminds me of the 2014, 2015 Royals, and it gave me goosebumps and kind of fired me up to, not that I wasn't motivated, but motivated me more to come back and want to play and you know, kind of get back to where we were, because those times were so special.
Yeah, especially coming back against San Francisco, that added a little bit something, and it felt pretty good. Yeah, but Alex, we appreciate you for joining us again. Hopefully continue to stay safe, and hopefully we see you out on a baseball field real soon, man.
Yeah, me too. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
All right, guys.
That is former number 2 overall pick and one of the greatest players and greatest dudes in Royals franchise history. It's always cool to talk with him. I had a chance to talk with him over the years, Matt, and he's had an unbelievable career.
Absolutely. And you think about the most iconic moments in Kansas City sports history. You think about Wasp, you know, the play that got the Chiefs back into the Super Bowl. But you also have to think about Alex Gordon's home run in Game 1 of the 2015 World Series. I'll certainly never forget that. And Kansas City icon, Kansas City hero. And it's cool. He grew up here in Chiefs Kingdom, and here he is winning championships with the Royals and rooting on the Chiefs. Pretty awesome.
I always remember Alex Gordon is the guy that is the reason why my pitching coach in college came into the dugout and told us to go in the locker room, that we couldn't watch him take BP. He's like, you guys don't want to see this. I'll never forget it. I was like, do what? He's in like 450 feet. Anyway, right now we have got a question from Landon with the Kingdom Kids. Let's go to that question right now. Landon, what do you got?
I got a question for you. Do you think the NFL Combine is a good way to determine if the players will dominate on that field?
Landon, that is a pretty good question, Matt, from Landon, because that's something that NFL evaluators and just NFL media people in general are going to kind of figure out right now is how important is that combine, pro days, all those different things. And I'll answer it first. I don't think it's terribly important at that point. I know a lot of evaluators, a lot of scouts are excited about this draft and just how it kind of looks 3 or 4 years from now, because I don't say it's more pure, but you're sticking to the tape. You're sticking to the football. You're not talking about interviews. You're not talking about 40 times and all this. And I know they got at the combine. Yeah, but I know you get at the combine, but you don't have pro days. You don't have all these numbers. You're strictly talking about the tape, and that's what these guys do. They play football. They don't run 40s.
Sure. I agree with you. And I don't think the combine is the end all be all when it comes to evaluation. I do think it helps at times, though, when you have a guy that, maybe didn't play his best at times in the last year, coming off an injury or got triple teamed all the time. You have a chance to see his measurables and what he can do. And I think a lot of times that can help guys. Guys like Dontari Poe, a former Chief, he comes to mind, a guy that's a workout warrior, ends up being pretty good in the NFL. So it can help, small school guys. So I think the balance of scouting and tape and also the combine is how you evaluate good players.
Yeah, I think it's always a good opportunity for them to kind of sit in front of the evaluators and get to know them as a person and kind of get to know how much they know about the game, how much do they know about football, and kind of quiz them. And that's something that has been talked about with Andy Reid and how good he is sitting in those meetings and just letting kind of the assistant coaches and the scouts and the coordinators kind of run those interviews, and he'll just pop in with 1 or 2 questions on the board and just be like, well, what would you do here? And it's literally like a trap question. I want to know if this guy knows football. And I've been told by scouts, he knows exactly what to ask, and he can very quickly figure out if that guy knows what he's talking about or if he's just regurgitating things that he's studied for the couple weeks leading into that to try to make, try to put his best face forward. So definitely something that is going to be intriguing for this. But what is also intriguing is the fact that we have Chiefs Chairman and CEO Clark Hunt is going to join us very soon. But Matt, when you talk about the draft, and we talk about intrigue of the draft, not just about Chiefs, but in general. Yeah, it's always about the quarterbacks. For always. NFL fans across the board, the most rabid fan bases each year in the draft are the ones who may have a quarterback who they take in the first round. And if you are one of those teams right now that may take a quarterback in the first round, half of your fan base is insufferable right now. It's just a mess right now. Chiefs fans know this well. They don't have to worry about it now, but we know this very, very well. But to me, that's the intrigue in the draft every year is where the quarterbacks go.
Sure. I mean, it's probably going to start first overall. Joe Burrow is probably the guy that's going to go first overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah. BJ, I have a trivia question for you and for the commenters. When was the last time a player won the Heisman, the national championship, and was drafted first overall all in the same year?
I know. How many times has it happened?
It's happened 3 times.
I know 3 times. Because the guy's unemployed right now.
Yes. You want to say who it is?
Well,
or let the commenters figure it out. There we go. Okay.
Sorry.
Cam Newton.
Oh, I did that.
You ruined it.
You know what?
But what I think is amazing is one player since 1967 to do that, Cam Newton. Joe Burrow could be the second here tonight. Joe Burrow is a cool story. You think about it. He's a backup at Ohio State, goes to LSU. He's pretty good.
He's a hometown kid. He's from Ohio. That's the coolest part of this. Is he's from Ohio, going back to Cincinnati. There's no intrigue left. He's going to the Bengals.
Yes, but he explodes in the scene at LSU this past year. Wins the national championship, the Heisman. He's unbelievable. He's charismatic. He's an incredible player. He's dynamic. And now he's probably going to go to the Bengals, and he's going to be a guy that has the weight of the franchise on his shoulders. I thought it was interesting what Alex Gordon said earlier about how you can kind of take that in stride. But I'm curious to see how Joe Burrow reacts to having the weight of Cincinnati and the Bengals and the whole franchise on his shoulders, because that's up to him and how he handles it. He's supremely talented, but how does he handle it? We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if moxie is the right word to use with Joe Burrow, but he wins the national title. He's got the cigar, walk into the press conference. He just has that swag, and that's what you want at the quarterback position, particularly a situation where you're going to Cincinnati, a team that hasn't had a lot of high level success for a really long time. And like Andy Dalton's been there before that. They've had some guys that have, 500. They've been pretty good. They've been competitive at times, but you draft a quarterback number 1 overall, particularly a quarterback coming off arguably the greatest season for a quarterback in college football history. You're going to have some intrigue there. And you look at the AFC North right now, you're going to have Joe Burrow and all his moxie, Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson. Yep. Like, I'll tune into the AFC North. Like, you got me. You got me right there. I will watch it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Old man Roethlisberger.
Oh, the guy with all the Super Bowl rings. All right, let's move on to the next quarterback. And that's to me, that's where the intrigue starts in this draft. I'm more excited for the early part of this draft to figure out where Tua Tagovailoa goes, because what we know about Tua is if he didn't get hurt for Alabama, he would be 1-2 with Joe Burrow. There's still some people who probably prefer Burrow, but they would be the top 2 picks in the draft. So the fact that you could maybe get him at 3, 4, 5, 6, wherever he falls to. Peter Schrager earlier said he may tumble all the way to 16. I don't believe that for a second.
Me either.
This is a quarterback in college who completed 70% of his passes through 87 touchdowns and 11 interceptions in the SEC. And he has been the best. He was the number 1 dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. He didn't come out of nowhere. Everybody knows who Tua is. Everybody's known who Tua is. I personally don't want to see him go to the Chargers in the top 6. I like what the Chiefs have been doing in the division. I like where things stand right now. And for them to get Tua, I think at Tua's best, he would make them much better. I think down the road, he would be a great pick for them. I'm hoping he ends up going 3 or 4 overall, but Tua is a huge pick. And then the other 2 quarterbacks that are getting mocked that are going to go early, Jordan Love is going to go at some point, and then Justin Herbert is another one of those guys who ends up going to the Chargers if Tua goes earlier, and the Chargers don't want to take a tackle. If they don't want to take Isaiah Simmons or one of those guys, you may end up seeing one of those 2 quarterbacks with the Chargers instead.
Sure. And BJ, just to back up a bit on Tua, you think about, like I said earlier, how all the pressure is on a player when he comes in and has to be the franchise quarterback. I will never forget the national championship game when he comes in at halftime as a freshman and wins that game for Alabama. So, I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. So I think you're right. Whatever team gets him, and I don't want it to be the Chargers either, we'll get a pretty good player. And the other guys you said too, you just got to make sure you're right about it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and here's the latest mock draft from Charles Davis, our guy, Charles Davis, helping out with NFL Network and just got promoted over to CBS Sports. So he'll probably be doing a lot of our games in the future, which is great news for Chiefs fans because Charles is one of the best dudes in this business. But here he's got Burrow obviously going number 1 to the Bengals. He's got Tua going to the Miami Dolphins at number 5, Justin Herbert at 6 to the Chargers, and then Jordan Love to the Saints at number 24. The Saints and Jordan Love is one of those rumblings, those rumors. Do they trade up and try to get him? But I've heard the Saints and Jordan Love quite a bit. That is definitely going to be interesting. But right now, speaking of intrigue, we are going to go and bring on Chiefs Chairman and CEO Clark Hunt. Clark, there's so much intrigue in this draft for a number of reasons, particularly with teams like we just discussed, needing that franchise quarterback, trying to take one in the first round. Luckily for us, we don't have to worry about that, but don't really envy teams having to go through that process and make those decisions in this kind of environment. So obviously with that said, just hope you and your family are doing well, staying safe, and just how are you enjoying this abundance of family time that we've all got going on right now?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say that I'm very concerned about what's going on right now and those who've been impacted by it. And I want to say a special thanks to the first responders who are on the front lines really battling for us. They're the real heroes in this. We're definitely getting to spend a lot of time together as a family. I've joked that we've made up for about 10 years of missed family dinners over the last 5 weeks. And I think we're going to get some more in the weeks to come. Just to your comment about the quarterbacks, it sure is nice to go into a draft not having that as a high priority. We took care of that back in 2017. We're so delighted to have Patrick Mahomes as our QB. I know there are 4 or 5 really good ones in this year's draft, and it'll be interesting to see how they come off the board.
When I spoke with Brett Veach the other day, he did give me a nugget out of it, and that we're not taking a quarterback in the first round, which I thought was pretty good. And we got some information out of him leading into the draft. But you mentioned with the situation and everything that everybody's dealing with right now and how life has changed for all of us. But on a much different level, the draft process also has changed for everyone this year, and we're all working through that. Just for you, how has the process changed leading into this draft with kind of how you help out Coach and Brett?
Yeah, well, it's certainly been different for all of us. I think everybody working from home has had to adapt. Our organization has done a great job. Our IT department's really helped connect everybody. Typically there'll be 15 to 20 people in our war room this time of year preparing the draft boards, and that's really all had to happen remotely this year. The same's been true of my interaction with Andy and Brett, where normally I would meet with them several times in the lead up to the draft to get their thinking and get their strategy going into it. We've had to do that virtually. But I can say it's worked great. I don't think we're really in any different place just because we've had to prepare for the draft in a different fashion.
You mentioned the tech side, and that's going to be something interesting to watch tonight also, is just to make sure it goes as smooth as possible, and there's not a lot of waiting. But no matter what, Chiefs fans know they're going to have to wait to some extent all the way to 32 before the Chiefs either make a pick or make a trade. Throughout this process, just what are you looking forward to most tonight as we wait for the Chiefs to make that decision at 32?
Well, with Brett as our GM, you can always be assured that there's probably going to be some trades involved. I don't know whether those trades will be up or down, but I know he'll certainly answer every call and look under every rock to make sure there's not an opportunity where he thinks he can better the organization. It's going to be very strange having to wait all the way to the 32nd pick to make a selection. But that's one of the great things that comes out of winning the Super Bowl. So it's a problem that we would welcome every year. And we'll just watch the board come off, and hopefully there'll be some guys that we're excited about when we get down there to the bottom of the first round.
Yeah, waiting to 32 is definitely something that we can all get used to. And Clark, again, we appreciate your time. But before we let you go, is there any inside information you can give us from your conversations with Brett as far as who the Chiefs might like in this draft? And we'll just keep it between me, you, and everybody watching. We'll virtually promise not to say anything publicly. What are you thinking? What do you got for tonight?
Well, I would really love to share it with you, but everybody's worried about the technology being hacked. And so I don't know if this is a secure line. So I'm just going to have to wait until after we make that selection.
Fair enough. It's going to be exciting. Clark, we appreciate your time.
Okay. Thanks so much. Great being on with you.
Matt, I'm 0 for 2. I've tried twice to get Brett Veach last week to admit or give me some kind of nugget on who we were going to draft, and that was a fail. And then right there, I tried again. I don't know what else I could do.
I think he did a good job. I think we can trust everyone. They wouldn't tell the other teams. What if other teams are watching? I don't know.
Yes.
Hey, BJ, I want to ask a question for the everyone watching here. Tell us in the comments where you think each of the top 4 quarterbacks is going to go. I personally think it's probably going to end up going Burrow, Tua, Herbert, and then Jordan Love. But other people might think differently. Let me know. Let us know where you think those guys are going to go, what teams they're going to go to, and we'll address some of those later in the show.
Yeah, you know what I'm really intrigued with, too? You talk about the top 4 quarterbacks. I want to know where Jalen Hurts ends up. Because he's going to end up in like a good situation, I think. He's going to end up on a good team, whether it's late in the first round or in the second round. He may end up having, I don't want to say a better career because it's about the player, but he may end up in a better situation where there's not as much pressure on him, or one of these teams that you think is going to take a quarterback early ends up waiting and then grabs him, because all that guy's done is win football games. I know you can look at the analytics of delivering the football down the field has kind of been the knock, and that's obviously very important as these evaluators figure their stuff out. But Jalen Hurts is that, got to kind of mention him too, and Jacob Eason has got a big arm, one of those guys that could be a guy down the road. But I'm curious, Matt, your thoughts as we wait for those answers from the chat room regarding where those guys are going to end up. But with the virtual environment and just knowing the communication situations that everybody's running through, do you expect more or less trades? Like, how do you expect the draft to look this year compared to years past?
My gut tells me less trades. I think a lot of teams will be looking to move down. I just think it's tough in this first round trying to move up into the top 10 when there's so much uncertainty about certain players and you don't know as much about them. We'll see. It takes 2 to tango, obviously. So we'll see how it plays out. I hope there's lots of trades. That creates all the intrigue. But I don't think there will be a lot of them tonight, unfortunately.
All right, we got some comments coming in. Scott Willis, you guys picked them right. Well, that's good to know. Thank you, Scott.
There we go.
Appreciate that. And then Karen Shawa said Tua to the Dolphins, and then Joe to the Bengals. Darren with the bold take. Thank you. Appreciate that. That should be pretty good. But we talked about the AFC West a little bit earlier, Matt, and I think when you look at it as a whole, it's interesting to think about the offensive, firepower that could seemingly pretty quickly enter this division. If the Broncos get like a Henry Ruggs, the Raiders end up with a CeeDee Lamb or a Jerry Jeudy, and if the Chargers get Tua Tonga Viola, did I say Tonga Viola? I think I got it. I think like the fourth time. Yeah. Chat room, let me know if I said that right. So let's call him Tua from now on. But, Matt, it's going to be fun looking back at the end of tonight and to see, what do the Chiefs have to contend with in the division, how teams are going to try to, keep up with this high-scoring offense that's coming off a Super Bowl victory. I love saying that.
It never gets old, does it? I think you nailed it, though. I mean, earlier, every team is trying to chase Patrick Mahomes right now and the Chiefs. It's about trying to keep up with them. So teams are going to try to get guys like CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, trying to keep up with our offense. I don't think they can. I think having Patrick Mahomes makes this pretty fun for Chiefs fans, where they don't really have to worry too much about what other teams do, because in the end, we have the best player in football. So curious to see what those teams do, but I like our guy.
I pleaded with all the draft analysts at the Combine to not use Patrick Mahomes as like a example of this guy's kind of like Patrick Mahomes, and they did it with Jordan Love, and I feel bad for Jordan Love. It's not fair to anyone, and Patrick Mahomes, there should be no comparisons to anything like that. We've never seen a quarterback with a career like this, and you start throwing the D word around, which our players did right after the Super Bowl, talking dynasty, and we talked about it right off the top of this show, that this draft, whether they're immediate contributors or not, this draft will be a foundational group of players that help contribute to a level of sustained success that this organization has never seen. So that's why I get excited, not necessarily because of what these particular players may do next year, but how they're a part of this group over the next few years. Because there's a core already here, obviously. They won the Super Bowl. There's a young nucleus there. But when you look at how you build a roster, you look at your salary cap. I fully expect every year we're going to be right up against the cap because we're going to be going for it every single year. Brant Tillis and Chris Shea are going to get their work cut out for them with the salary cap. But in saying that, you can't have all of your talented players on a second contract or on these big contracts. So you have to hit on some rookies. You got to have some starters on these cheaper deals, which means hitting on picks like this, hitting on a Rashad Fenton and a Colin Saunders and a Juan Thornhill, these second-round guys, to then mix in with the guy, obviously the marquee free agents, the guys who hit free agency, get these big paydays. So it should be a lot of fun. Again, like I said, we will be back live streaming around the 27th pick later. McCole Hardman is going to join us. Chiefs GM Brett Veach is going to join us probably 10 or 15 minutes after they make their selection. He's going to join us before he goes and talks with the rest of the media. So if you want instant analysis, instant reasoning, and instant explanation for whatever it is that they did, tune back into this live show. We've got you covered. It doesn't matter how late it is. Matt and I are going to be up. We're wired. This is what we're living for right now. So this is going to be a whole lot of fun. I'm going to be doing it with Mitch Holtis. So voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holtis, will be doing the show, and his passion, it's going to be coming out. That's going to be fun. So, and we'll have highlights of the players, explaining their fit, the whole deal. We'll have everything for you. Again, watch the draft. ABC, ESPN, NFL Network. I can't say this enough, and on behalf of everybody who's a part of this, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that made this work. Chiefs fans, enjoy this tonight. We've been waiting for a really long time for something real, something sports related, instead of old movies that we've seen or Tiger King or whatever Netflix show you're watching. You guys deserve this. We all deserve this. And Matt, before we let everybody go, do you have any parting words?
I think you're right. I think everyone enjoy this. We have real sports. We have a real event here tonight. And all of us are in this together. Roger Goodell's in his basement doing this. All these players, their lives are still changing tonight from wherever they are at their homes watching this. And the Chiefs will get better tonight, either with a trade or with a player. So enjoy this. I'm so excited. It's about to start. Let's go do it.
We've got like 10 people behind the scenes ready to crank on content this entire time. So make sure you're staying tuned to all the Chiefs social channels. We got a lot of cool stuff coming to you guys. And we'll see you again around the 27th pick with McCole Hardman, Brett Veach, Mitch Holtis. We can't wait. We'll see you in a couple hours.